Okay, hi, I'm Kelsey. Like you said, I'm lead cartographer and designer at Stamen Design. And today I want to talk to you about Stamen's dark materials. This is a presentation that I put together with my colleague Alan McConchie, who's also a lead cartographer, and he's unfortunately not here, but we did this work together. So, show of hands, who here in the audience has designed a dark map before? Okay, when I ran this at work, no one raised their hand, and I was like, several of you have, and you're just shy, so I'm glad that you guys are not shy. So what is a dark map? I think it seems like this audience knows the answer to that, but in general, I would say it has a similar visual language as a dark interface, which is increasingly becoming more common, that you have options as a user. So you'll have different display modes like you'll see here. I'm weird because I use light mode on my phone, but dark mode on my computer. And these are Apple settings, but I'm sure other PCs and other systems have similar things. Oh no, okay, we're still here. And a dark map complements a light map, but usually it's not a direct inverse of a light map, and that's important, and I'll talk about that more later. And we have a theory at Stamen that there are two different types of dark modes. There's a night mode, which is meant to be used in low light environments. So think the classic example is like navigation at night. You really don't want extreme bright light because that will blind you temporarily, and that is dangerous. That's a real safety hazard. And there tends to be less contrast with these night mode kind of dark maps. And just think about the display in your car, how it adjusts settings, when you go in and out of a tunnel, things like that. There are other areas of design that already use some of the approaches that we're using here with cartography. And then we have a daytime dark mode, which I think of as more of a visual preference. For me, I get migraines, and one of the triggers is light, so I like dark things that are easier for me to read and don't strain my eyes quite as much. And they use less energy and they look cool, so I feel like that's a factor. But they should be legible in both light and dark environments. And I've known people who've told me that they design dark maps in a closet or something. I think that works for maybe the night mode option, but not so much for the daytime dark mode because you're not in a windowless room most of the time during the day. So that's something that I think about a lot. So we think about where does a dark map fit into your design process as a cartographer? Should it be core or complementary? And I think what we see a lot is someone says, okay, I need a light map and a dark map. And they start with the light map first. That's the staple. Most software has at least a light interface and maybe a dark interface option. And then the dark comes afterwards, so it's they have a relationship, but light is the primary, the core map in your system. But I think it's better when they're designed together, because then you're not just inheriting all of the problems in your light map into your dark map, but you're thinking about them as a whole system together. We have a lot of clients for whom we design sets of maps, so a light and a dark standard, or a more of a global reference-based map. And then you might have a light and a dark data viz map, monochromatic, that kind of thing. So it's nice to have them, think about them as a whole system and not just dark is the dark version of light. It's no, it has its own independent look and feel. But they work together. We think people should offer both, and we don't really see this very often. I have a lot of examples that I'm going to talk about. I guess Alan added this dark chocolate Ghirardelli icon here. I don't know why. But I guess if you like dark but not super dark, it's good to have options here. So maybe he's trying to say the percentage of chocolate is, or percentage of cacao, I don't know, can vary based on your preference, so it's nice to have options. Okay, so some challenges that we've found with dark maps. With maps in general, we know the accessibility guidelines are pretty undefined. And there have been a lot of talks about this at NACIS over the years. I gave one a couple of years ago. The maps in general are just like hard to use for people who don't have really like perfect vision. But there are like lots of small adjustments that you can make to your maps to make them more readable for a lot of people, like minimum text size, higher contrast. I think when I touch this is when it starts to flash. Dark, it's so dark mode, I know. Things you can do to make your maps more colorblind friendly. There are many of them. Colorblind friendly color palettes are really helpful, but then this is like also a problem that's a little bit harder to solve for dark maps. I think just like more exploration really needs to be done to make that happen. But dark interfaces have a lot of issues too that people don't think about, and I actually didn't know these until I did a little research for this talk, but things like reading light text on a dark background for people who have dyslexia or have an astigmatism, which is a lot of people, is much harder. So that's something that we're trying to think about when we design dark maps. The other thing is, like, I'm a cartographer and a designer, and I can tell you for sure that design principles and cartographic principles are not always the same. And this is a thing that we end up describing to clients a lot, especially if they're more design-oriented. But maps are so much more complicated than like a typical UI. And like you would see here, this dark UI, I think this is Reddit, is very simple. There are like 5 colors here. Whereas this is a map that we designed for AWS, has a lot of colors on it. And they all have to work together in the light and in the dark. So we have a lot harder of a time working on maps than most designers have with regular old interfaces. So we've been thinking about dark maps, and we have these scatter plots that are, I guess, kind of an analysis, more of a data viz of different maps that we've seen that like come up a lot in our day-to-day work. And Alan put these together, and these extract the top 50 colors from a map screenshot and visualize different sizes. The circles represent what percentage of the screenshot is that color. I'm curious if anyone has a guess like what any of these are. This is 3 sets of light and dark maps. A and B are a set, C and D are a set, and E and F are a set. Does anyone have a guess about any of these? No? Okay. I'll tell you, A and B are Apple. The middle one is AWS, and the last one is here. We designed the one for AWS, so I feel fine putting that up here. But it's interesting to see like the relationships between them. So like there's a lot of similarities, which maybe you would expect, even though to me these styles look pretty different. And you see like a much wider range of hues in the light map than the dark map. And in the case of Apple, I'm not surprised to see this, but it feels much more bespoke, like everything is really kind of customized, and it's like less of an operation, whereas AWS, I can tell you, there's math happening in the background to make some of this work. So I can really see that in the light map. You can see like how equidistant the circles are on the scatter plot. And here uses like a much more condensed like range of hues, which is very interesting to me. And they have like more of a straight up shift from left to right along this lightness spectrum. And there's a little more variety for the other 2. So it's fun. We like making weird data viz, so it's fun to look at maps like this in a totally different way. Another one, like I used to work at Mapbox, and I know also for a fact that Mapbox uses a lot of math to make it work between their light and dark monochrome maps. And they're similar, like just almost a direct flip from one end of the lightness spectrum to the other. So what do we feel like we've learned from analyzing these palettes? Like I was saying, for some of them, like there's shifting along this axis here, the lightness axis at the bottom, and then some of the relationships between colors seem to change, so that is very interesting. And I feel like the nice palettes are the maps that I like personally, and that we, like, as cartographers at Stamen, are the ones that do a little bit of both. So it's like not a straight up inverse, and you're not individually changing every color, but it's some combination of the two. So that's why, you know, cartographers are essential to make maps look nice. Other things we've been thinking about are like, is it better for the water to be dark or for the land to be dark in a dark map? And think about, like, as a user, like, how do you perceive the relationship between these two different polygons? Like, the figure-ground relationship depends maybe a little bit on your use case, but in most cases, the data that you're looking at will be on the land. So maybe it makes sense mostly to have darker land so you have more colors to work with. These are just things that come up to, you know, as we're working on maps, but they both work. I'm sure everyone, like, has their own preference, but something we like to think about. And I'll give you lots of examples. We've been working on dark maps for a really long time. This is Midnight Commander from 2009. We think this is like one of the first dark maps that we've seen. I was not at Stamen at that time. That was a long time ago, but I like how blue and green this is. It's not like quite so, you know, monochrome like the other maps we've looked at. And then here we have dark matter. And we're all trying to find the cartographers who did this, because this is a Stamen map from like 2014 that we designed for Cardo. It's really, really dark. And this is giving like someone is in a closet with no windows designing in the dark. Too dark, I think, but you know, it's a base map for DataViz, and that was the time when like your data is like neon yellow and neon pink on top of a really dark base map. So I guess it worked for that. But more recently, AWS, this is the project I mentioned before. We have 3 types of dark modes for them. So there's like a global reference base map standard, a monochrome, and then we added a dark terrain this year. All meant to be daytime dark modes, because they're not for driving, they're for like a dashboard or something on your website. We just designed some maps for Notion. So these are in your, like a document you have, like a Google Doc. And these are meant to be seamlessly part of your document and not look like they're coming from some other place. And Notion has like a really nice minimalistic UI that I love, and I feel like this was a pretty easy one to make work. I'm glad we're able to get some colors in here so it's not super dark. And then the last one here is HUD, which is a project we've worked on for about a year. And this is a navigation map. So this one is pretty dark because you don't want those bright lights. You know, that's not safe to have. And I am almost out of time, but this is just for NACIS. We created 2 new versions of Toner, which is one of our like core styles. So we had like the 2 on the left here before, which is Toner and Toner Light, and now we have Toner Dark and Toner Black Light. We debated the names for a long time, but they're available now on Stadia Maps, which hosts our maps these days. And these are not a pure inverse of the original, like the light versions of these maps, but I had to make some tweaks to make them work. But that was one thing that kind of motivated this talk in the first place. We were like, what if we could do this? And it gave us a good excuse to make new versions of Toner. So I'll take it whenever we have a chance to do it. Here's some, you know, comparisons between the 2. Toner Dark, I feel like fills a void that we've had. So having a nice like dark base map that looks like a Stamen product, I think, is helpful to have. So pop some DataViz right on top of your map here. And if you want to talk more about dark maps, you can come find me or email me or Alan, or reach out to us at stamen.com. And thank you. I don't watch this show, his Dark Materials, but I'm told these are characters or something from it. But like this is a ChatGPT image, like where I think this one in the red hat is supposed to be me. That's Alan over there. I don't know. Thank you.